Tanner McNally with Evergreen Exteriors doing a roof inspection on 108. Here we can see we have a old ridge vent system up here. This is, you know, doing okay, a little cracked, a little broken, but looks like it's holding up pretty well. We've got old, what I'm guessing are gaff shingles. Over here on these slopes, we're seeing some thermal cracking throughout. Let me see if I can find another one. Right here, you can see a thermal crack running along horizontally. A little bit of degranulation on the corners. The lower slope over here. On the heavier sun exposure sides, we're seeing a little bit worse. We can see a number of missing shingles at these valleys. There's one right here. Here's where we have more sun exposure. You can see we've completely lost the granules right here. We have the fiberglass mat showing through. Fiberglass mat showing through again right here. Another missing shingle over here. A little tiny chunk of some shingle. More degranulation in these valleys. We're showing some bulging in these valleys. With the slope on this roof, what I would recommend are metal valleys instead of the shingle through valleys, just because it makes me a little bit nervous seeing this much degranulation in a valley right here. Got a little torn up shingle right here in this corner. These pipe jacks should be ran through the next layer of shingles, and then only this little section should be sticking out on the piece below it. The problem with this system right here is that if you look into the side, you have just a gap straight into the home through this point right here. So any wind blown rain could get in. More degranulation on these heavy sun exposure sides. You can see more down here where we've lost just about all the granules. You can also see this in the gutters. Over the gutters, they're completely full of the granules on the home. More degranulation throughout the field on this side. This pipe jack right here is done correctly, unlike that one over there. On this one, we have shingle coming all the way down to cover up past this line right here, so no wind-blown rain can get on the sides. The PVC rain colors around these are in pretty rough shape. You can see cracking on the top. Would definitely recommend replacing those at a minimum. Uncaulked nail heads up here. Thermal cracking throughout this ridge. That's the back side. Over here on the front side. This slope right here is looking much better with the less sun exposure. Over here, we're looking worse, where we're seeing more degranulation, where we're seeing fiberglass matting throughout. Down here, we have a little step down. You can see we got some organic growth. Underneath, we do have step shingles, and step shingles are run on every shingle, which is awesome. If you look right in there, see we got a step shingle. One shingle up, have a step shingle. One shingle up, have a step shingle. You don't see that a lot, that's awesome. A little bit of organic growth down here. We'll check for a kick-out flashing. Looks like they do have a kick-out flashing and a bird's nest with eggs in it. That's crazy. I would recommend running a little bit different of a kick-out flashing versus this one right here. We'd probably want to redirect it a little bit slower and a little bit less aggressively, because right now we're just building up stuff, including a bird's nest, at that transition right here. So we want this to start way back here over here and slope back slowly over the span of like 3 or 4 feet. This was probably a repair put in after the roof install. Same issues over here. You have that same, what I'm guessing is post-roof install diverter / kick-out flashing. I guess I would prefer for that piece of metal to start way back underneath the roof over here and then slowly angle back. Over here on this side, we have the same, let's see if I can get this to focus, there we go. 1 step shingle per shingle, which is awesome. A lot of these homes we don't see that, so it's nice to see that. A lot of organic growth in this section right here. This is going to be a consistent problem with this home, so I would recommend running an AR shingle or treating that area every 3 to 5 years approximately. Another valley over here. We're still seeing some bulging. Looks like the corners were not nipped either too. So what the preferred method for installing these valleys are to nip these corners. If you're running a cut valley and not a metal valley, which is not my preferred install, but is an option, what you need to do per code is to clip these corners back about 4 inches. That way they don't suck water back into the roof system. So what happens with water right now is it runs down this roof, hits this flat edge right here, and then runs back underneath the shingles, causing problems later. Couple more, I think, chunks of shingle. Over here on the skylights, it's an old Velux skylight. Oh, look, it says it. Velux. We still got 1 step shingle per shingle. What I'm talking about with step shingles are these little pieces of metal right here. They ran 1 per shingle, which is perfect. A little bit of caulking on this transition over here. I wish they would have flashed this a little bit differently, but this is okay. Everything else on the skylight. See over here? Now on the other side they had 1 break on the ends of these shingles. On this side, they did it incorrectly, where they have breaks in the center of a shingle, not at the end. And you can see that's pretty much all the way throughout this run over here. They get closer back at the top, but this seam right here should be at the shingle right here per code. I can tell that this, so if you look at this right here, looks like this might have been a problem at some point. So this shingle's been torn all the way up right here. Looks like there was a repair for leaking skylight at some point. Something along those lines. Over here on this side, got the gutters full of granules again. This side's nice and clean. Eyebrow down below, we'll hop down and check that out. Couple more uncaulked nail heads. This section right here, we should have 1.5 inch clearance from this piece of fascia right here off the roof deck. And then actually over here, so in this entire area over here, you can see we've got your Truewood T4 siding directly touching the roofing. This should have 1.5 inches at the minimum clearance in between these 2 fields, so a space about that big all the way down. What we should see over here too is a kick-out flashing. We need to have a kick-out flashing that redirects the water from this area out from behind the siding. Right now, we can kind of see bubbling already in this little corner. I'm sure if we look farther down the field, we can kind of see on those pieces down below. We're starting to get some bubbling from water getting behind the siding. So, really important to have a kick-out flashing over here in this area. The double seam right there. That's it for the roof inspection. Tanner McNally signing off.